In reading this marvelous collection in the New Testament called the Psalms, Israel's great songbook, I am continually amazed not only by the number of Psalms, which is 150, but by such a variety and richness in the Psalms. Psalms of complaint and Psalms of thanksgiving. Psalms of lament and Psalms of praise. Psalms that speak of sickness and sorrow, and Psalms that speak of joy and gladness. Psalms that question the strange ways of God, and Psalms that affirm that God is an ever-present help in the time of trouble. Psalms dripping with the psalmist's tears, and Psalms admonishing us to rejoice and be glad. Psalms sung with a bowed down head, and Psalms with eyes lifted up to the hills. Happy Psalms, sad Psalms, Psalms that instruct, and Psalms that reprove. I don't know about you, but I love the Psalms because they run the full range of our roller coaster emotions. And whenever we read the Psalms, our response to the psalmist is always, me too. Me too. What you're feeling, psalmist, I feel. Me too. We too have been where the psalmist has been. When we look at Psalm number 20, some scholars have labeled this psalm an enthronement psalm, meaning that it focuses on God's kingship and celebrates the God of Israel who sits on his throne and reigns forever. And in the language of our ancestors, the God who sits high but looks low. Heaven is his throne, and earth is his footstool. Enthronement psalms remind us that our God is worthy to be praised because God is God and God reigns. Other scholars believe that Psalm 20 was originally composed for David, Israel's beloved king, as he prepares to go into battle against Israel's enemies. And Israel had a whole lot of enemies. The Philistines, the Moabites, the Arameans, the Edomites, the Ammonites, all the ites. But either way, this psalm is a cry for the Lord's help. The people realize that their safety and security are tied up in the well-being of the king. So their prayers are for the king to prevail, for the people and for the king. Military engagement was a matter of life and death. We live in a world today where wars can take place all over the world, but they don't directly affect us. But in those days, what happened in a country was determined by battles and who won the war. It was a matter of life and death. War was serious business. Today we live in a world in constant threat of war. Even in recent years, wars in Ukraine and wars in Gaza. In biblical times, if the king and his armies were successful in battle, the people prospered. If, however, the king is defeated, the people will suffer and perhaps die, which meant that a strong king meant a strong kingdom and probable victory. But a weak king meant a weak king and probable defeat. No wonder the people prayed for victory on behalf of their king. And get this, even if they didn't like the king, victory was in the people's interest. They even could pray. They didn't let the king hear them, but king, I don't like you, but I want you to win the victory because your victory is our victory. Psalm number 20 is composed of 9 verses, with the first 6 verses beginning with the word may. May, not the verb, not the noun may as in the month of May, but the verb may, meaning to have permission to, as in, may I go now? Or the preacher who says, may I call your attention to this passage of scripture, or may I have this dance, or may I help you cross the street. Parents teach their children to say, may I. The word may is an expression of a desire for something to happen or for someone to act. And the benediction, may the peace of God that passes all understanding, expresses the desire that God will give his people peace. May I, may. Listen to this ancient congregation expressing to their king what they desire for God to do for him on their behalf. There are 7 mays. May the Lord answer you when you are in distress. May the name of God of Jacob protect you. That's the second. The third, may he send you help from the sanctuary and grant you support from Zion. May he remember all your sacrifices and accept your burnt offerings. May he give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy over your victory and lift up your banner in the name of the Lord. And all of that coming together with the seventh may the Lord grant you all your requests. That's a lot of mays. And what we notice first is that the people know where the king's help must come from. They may have been familiar with some other Psalms. Psalm 37, the Lord helps them and delivers them. He delivers them from the wicked and saves them because they take refuge in him. Or Psalm number 121, my help cometh from the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. Or Psalm number 46, God is our refuge and our help, a very present help in the time of trouble. The people understood that David, their king, can't help them unless the Lord helps David. They are aware that even though David and his armies may fight the battle is not David's. It's the Lord's. Because David is fighting on behalf of the Lord and in the name of the Lord. And now when we quote, we like to quote from the Bible, the battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. That's a nice quote. But you better be sure we're fighting the Lord's battles and not our own. Because sometimes we want the Lord to fight battles that we have made instead of fighting the Lord's battles that he wants us to fight. The Lord ain't gonna fight our petty battles and our petty grievances we have with other people. The Lord's battle is bigger than our little battles, and the people understood that the battle is not David's, because David was fighting on behalf of the Lord. The congregation is praying to the Lord, help our King win the battle, because our safety and security are at stake. In other words, they're saying to the Lord, we need your help. And may I say parenthetically, if I may, I use the word may, that too many of our people need help, but won't ask for help. That many of our men are hurting and need help, but will not seek help. Why? Because we're men. And men don't need help. And men shut it up and keep it all in and suffer, not even sharing their pain with their wives and their significant others, and we die young because we need help. But we don't ask for help because James Brown told us, I think it was him, that a man ain't supposed, he said that, ain't supposed to cry. If he didn't say it, so what? He could have said it. Because men are We some bad dudes, you know, and we some bad dudes going to early graves. And many of our children are suffering mental and emotional disorders, but the parent is in denial or ashamed to seek help. And too many parents take on this burden, I can handle this all by myself, and feel like you're a failure because you cannot help. God has provided professional help. And to ask for help is not a sign of weakness. In fact, asking for help is a sign of strength. It takes a strong man to admit that he's weak. Paul says that in our weaknesses, we are made strong. Strength is made perfect, he says, in weakness. When I am weak, Paul says, then I am strong. The people understand that the king needs help. The people want their king to know, because we love and respect you. This is what we want the Lord to do for you, King. Listen again, may the Lord answer your cry, keep you safe from all harm, send you help from his sanctuary, strengthen you. May he accept your burnt offerings, grant your heart's desires, make all of your plans succeed, and may the Lord answer all of your prayers. Why? So that when you return from battle, we can shout the victory. And then in verse 7, that's a key verse, because the psalmist is reminding us of that in which we cannot trust. Some trust in chariots, and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. Verse 7, this is a key verse because it raises the question of trust. And the reality is that you've got to be careful who you trust and in whom you trust and what you trust. Who is trustworthy? Who's worthy of your trust? And who can you trust? But there's another question when we turn it back. Are you trustworthy? Can God trust you? Because God ain't gonna make you do what you don't want to do. And so can God trust you to do the right thing? Can God trust you to go to church? Can God trust you to worship him? Can God trust you to go to choir rehearsal? Can God trust you to be on your post when you're supposed to usher, when you have a responsibility, when you're supposed to show up? If you're a leader in the church, can God trust you to lead? And the psalmist is suggesting that some people are trusting in the wrong thing. And trusting in the wrong people. And so the psalmist in verse 7 offers a corrective for those who put their trust in those things that are untrustworthy and people who can't be trusted. Verse 7 is a warning to those who put the trust in the king rather than in the King of Kings. Those who put their trust in earthly rulers rather than putting their trust in the Lord. Now, I must admit, got a confession. Now you're going to listen really on it. It ain't what you think. I got a confession that, and my confession is that Psalm 20 troubles me. And the reason it troubles me is this: if Israel is encouraged to pray for their king, who is also their political leader and head of state, the implication is that we also should pray for our, I gotta say it, I gotta say it, I don't wanna say it, I gotta say it, that we are to pray for our political leaders, including those we don't like. Listen, this bothers me. Because while I'm reading this and studying this, I'm led to Paul's epistle to the Romans, where Paul writes, and I love Paul, but he writes, let everyone be subject to the governing, I can't even read it. to the governing, yeah, I need some prayer now. Subject, listen to the governing authorities, for there is, oh, it gets worse, there is no authority except which God has established. But it goes on. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Now I'm really mad. Because listen, let me tell you something. Sometimes the Bible will make you mad. You mean I gotta do all this stuff? It makes me mad. Love your enemies. Do good to them that despitefully use you. That makes me mad. Come on, you better be honest with me this morning. You don't like it any more than I like it, but there it is. In black and white, King James Version, NIV Version, New Revised, any version you want to look at it, that the authorities that exist have been established by God. And there's some things in the Bible that I don't want to do, and it makes me mad because I'm a preacher. It troubles me because if you want honesty from the pulpit, I don't like the one who sits in the Oval Office. I don't like his policies. I don't like him. I don't like what he's doing to this nation and to my people. I don't like it. And I'm mad with this book. Look, I want to, let me throw it away or do something. No, don't look at me like I'm crazy. There's some stuff in here you don't like either. That Sermon on the Mount stuff, loving your enemies. I don't like it because there's some people who are hard to love. Then the Spirit helps me understand. Thank God for the Spirit. Because you do know that God has given us the Spirit to enable us to do the things we don't want to do. Thank you for the Holy Spirit, because what the Spirit is saying to us is that what Paul writes about the authorities has nothing to do with the person in the office, but with the office itself. Talk to me, somebody. And so he urges us to respect the institution of government, because the government has been ordained by God for the good of the people. God's desire is for us to live in an orderly society, a society of laws that protect the safety. Doesn't always happen, but society of laws that protect the safety and well-being of all the people. And without order in a society, there is disorder. I ain't never been for defund the police. I believe in reforming, because some of them don't need to have a badge and a gun. I never wanted to defund the police, because when I need them, I want to call them. God has given us a government and agencies in a government in order for us to have order and not chaos. The same way in creation, God said, I'm looking out on nothing but chaos, and I got to bring order. So let me say, let there be. I got to bring some order out this mess. So let there be light, and separating the light from the darkness and the water from the dry land. God gave us the authorities so that there will not be a society of lawlessness, and so that the strong cannot run over the weak. But God expects those who rule over us to promote the well-being of all the people, not just some of the people, not just Musk. Which also means that God, I'm trying to help us, trying to help myself. Means that God established our governing authorities, but expects us to put the right people in authority, because God ain't voting. He expects us, gives us the freedom to make choices, even if our choices are wrong. I'm not talking about us, but even if the national choices are wrong, and if we don't put the right people in office, shame on America. Shame on our people who didn't vote, but who are now complaining. Shame on those few black men who preferred an indecent, crooked felon to a decent, qualified black sister. Shame on them. Shame on the millions of white women who would have voted for a white woman, but not a black woman. Shame. And now America is paying the price for choices Americans have made, and trust in him is beginning to erode from people who trusted in him to make their lives better, but they didn't know he was going to fire them. Oh no. Now things are beginning to get interesting, because we're finding out, this is not on my sermon, we're finding out that it's not just about race. It's about power. It's about kingship. It's about one man wanting to rule not just America, but the whole world, about a man who cares about nobody but himself. Now they are learning what we knew all along. Because God establishes authorities does not mean that God condones the actions of those in authority, those who don't have a heart for the welfare of all of God's people. There are evil authorities. There are evil empires. There are evil governments. There are evil politicians. Evil authorities enslaved the Hebrew children down in Egypt land. Evil authorities conquered and then carried the Jews into Babylonian captivity. Your evil authorities put Peter in jail and banished John to an island called Patmos. Evil authorities sanctioned the enslavement of my ancestors and yours, and then passed laws making racial segregation called Jim Crow legal. Evil authorities took 6 million Jews and threw them in ovens in Auschwitz. Evil authorities condemned Jesus in a kangaroo court, found him guilty of trumped up charges, pun intended, and had him crucified on an old rugged cross between two thieves. Evil authorities did that. And Christians are to submit to authority, but to submit does not mean obey. See, that's what women thought when, had that thing in the marriage license. Ain't saying nothing about the man obeying, but we got to obey. But the submission is to the relationship, not to the person. And so Christians are to submit to authority, but submit does not mean obey authorities whose conduct and policies are opposed to God and who don't represent the heart of God and the teachings of Jesus. Submit but not obey. Paul stood in the midst of the Jewish authorities one day in the Sanhedrin and said, we must obey God rather than man. Martin Luther King marched and protested along with thousands because he said we must obey God rather than evil authorities. Which raises the question, should we as Christians pray for political leaders we don't like? Don't answer for me yet. Wait to hear what I got to say. Y'all talking about yep, nope. Listen to the sermon. Should we, as people of God, pray for political leaders we didn't elect? Because on the other side of the picture, millions are praying because he was elected and have the nerve to say it was God's will. When grandmama said God don't like ugly. Should we? The short answer is yes. I got a long answer, but the short answer. Just as Israel prayed for their king, we are to pray for our political leaders, but not prayers enabling them to continue their evil ways, but prayers to change their hearts and change their ways. And if anybody can do it, God can. I hope that helps somebody today. The psalmist reminds us, be careful who you trust. And throughout our history, we have been disappointed by people we have put in office who made promises, who knew they couldn't keep the promises when they made them, because it ain't just up to you. A mayor can't make promises and keep them without a city council. A president cannot make policy and keep it without the aid of the judiciary and the aid of Congress. We have been disappointed by people in whom we have trusted. And if you got a second marriage, or had a first one, it didn't work. And that's all right, because we're human. But the trust we thought was there on both sides proved to be disappointing. Oh, y'all getting very quiet on me now. Very, very quiet. Okay, then it's time to close. Some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. And you know why the psalmist uses horses and chariots because that's all they had. Those were the weapons of warfare. We might contemporize the passage for today, and this is how it might read. Some put their trust in guided missiles and nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction. Some put their trust in propaganda or in internet influencers, or in social media, or elite universities, or politicians who lie, or false prophets who deceive us. Those are today's horses and chariots. In fact, you talk about trusting in others or trusting things. We can't always trust ourselves to do the right thing. You know why? Because Paul says there's a war, and it's not in the Ukraine. It's not in the Gaza Strip. There's a war going on in my members, he says, meaning inside of me. There's a war raging on the inside of me. Paul says, the good that I would do, I do not do it, but the evil that I don't want to do, that's what I wind up doing. I don't always do what I want to do and what I know is right to do, because there's a war going on. And so he says, oh, wretched man that I am. He says, I'm messed up, y'all. He says, I got one devil whispering in this ear. I got an angel of God whispering in this ear, and I don't always know which way to turn. And sometimes I turn the wrong way, no matter how good a Christian I am. I tithe every Sunday. I go to church, but the war is still going on. And will go on until the day I die. But then I like what he says in verse 6. Now this I know. I know in whom I can trust. Because some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. That's the question, y'all. Do you trust God? Because chariots break down. The wheels come off. Horses get tired and refuse to run. But we trust in the name of the Lord our God. We trust what we have faith in. We trust God because we have faith in God. Jesus trusted God on the cross. Father, into your hands. I'm not in the hands of Pilate. I'm not in the hands of Caiaphas. I'm not in the hand of the Pharisees. I'm not even in the hands of my disciples who deserted me. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And then the language of the King James, he gave up the ghost. I'm so glad, my brothers and sisters, I don't know about you. We trust in one who neither slumbers nor sleeps. We trust in the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. We trust in the Lord who makes a way out of no way. We trust in the Lord who is never late, but always on time. We trust in God because of what he's already done for us. And I want to know before I close, has he done something for you? Can you look back over your life and point to a situation where you didn't know which way to go and you didn't know what you were going to do. But the Lord stepped right in, right on time. I trust God because he's already brought me. He's already made a way out of no way. He's already delivered me. He's already healed me. He's already answered my prayer. He's already made a way. I trust God because God is trustworthy. What about the times you didn't know where you were going? You didn't know what you were going to do, but you put your trust in the Lord, and the Lord delivered you. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he will direct thy path. And I don't know about you, but I trust him with my life. And I'm going to trust him in death. And I know because I won't have to die alone. How many times have family members gathered at the bedside of a dying relative, and you want to be there, and you stay all night long? The next day they say, maybe I'll run home to get a little rest. And the very time that you leave and go home, death comes. But I know somebody, not nurses, not doctors, not machines, but somebody who's there because you can trust God in death.